These are dark times, there is no denying.
Tell me where he is.
Our world has faced no greater threat than it does today. But you can't fight this war on your own, Mr. Potter.
Hey everybody, Harry Potter Deathly Hallows Part 1. Like always, I'm here, Matt Falvey, and I'm joined by Matthew Owen.
Yeah, what's up?
Matthew Owen and I have been reviewing every single Harry Potter movie in the franchise. It's been fun. The movies haven't always been great.
It's been fun to review them, but I wouldn't say it's been fun to watch all of them going back.
Sometimes it's a lot more fun to review a movie like this too, because you have so many moving parts. There's such a huge budget. There are like good ideas and terrible ideas. Great acting and bad acting. Yes, it's a giant weird. It's like somebody who's never cooked before, and they're like, "Look, I made you something," and you're like, "Oh yeah, scrambled eggs and soy sauce." Actually,
hey, some people might like that.
That's not a bad one. That wasn't bad enough. First off, we actually had a comment on one of the videos.
Yes, we did.
They said, "Hey guys, thanks for doing this series. It motivated me to rewatch the movies, and that was incredibly fun after 7 years not looking into any of it. I felt like cutting Dobby's freedom thing was a good idea." Oh, this is he responded to our Goblet of Fire video.
Okay.
"I felt like cutting Dobby's freedom thing was a good idea, but the Barty Crouch story received too little time and explanation since it was strongly connected to the main mystery. Too bad you skipped the Yule Ball with its teen romantic drama and cringy dialogues. Always enjoyed people ranting about it and felt mixed myself."
Yeah. Do you want to talk about the Yule Ball for 4 seconds here? It was garbage.
Oh, it was so the Yule Ball was so bad, and in the deleted scenes, there's even more bad Yule Ball stuff. There's like a full-on band performance, and it's real bad when they try to mix in that sort of like weird culture stuff.
They should just cut the Yule Ball and then make that a spin-off where it's just like its own, Harry Potter 8 and the Yule Ball of death. Harry Potter 8 and the Yule Ball of hate. So that's a thing. They should do that.
But make it a reality show where you want everybody at the Yule Ball to die.
Yeah, but everybody has to do a dance, and if they don't dance like as good as one of the professors wants them to, they get jinxed, and then they get like deformed. It's like Dancing with the Stars, but every time they mess up, they get deformed in some sort of way.
Yes,
you can have that one for free, J.K. Rowling.
So the person that commented it was, I don't know how to pronounce this. It's P-O-M, I think that's an A-H, and then K-O, what looks like a 3, A-K.
Pomokoth Thriak.
Right, and that's not like a leet speak name. I think that's written in like the what do you call it, Cyrillic, like the Russian type alphabet. So thank you very much for your comment.
Thanks, man.
That's great. We got to it 2 videos,
a little late.
3 videos later, but we do some of these in advance. All right. So, we got another Yates movie.
Yes.
Back to Cloves writing the scripts, which is always a problem. We got the same sort of that dark blue, muted, purpley tones. They have all been, since Yates took, I think, maybe since the second one, they felt like these little mini kid horror movies. This one really starts getting into the horror even more. Especially,
yeah, I would say the body horror and like the kind of visual stuff is where 7 really pulls off from the rest of the pack.
And there's a couple scenes later on we'll get to that are set up like horror scenes. There's one scene in particular with a lot of blood and flies. And I just like when this stuff is happening, I'm thinking, oh, this is for kids or young adults. But young
Intense
adults,
action violence.
Young adults. That's what's on the box. Is it?
Yeah,
that's what gives it the PG.
PG-13.
But I think they're smart to do that because kids don't want to be treated like kids. They want to be older, right? They don't want to be treated like little babies. So we open up. Oh my God! So my first thought with this movie was, all right, are they going to be better actors? And I understand why they've struggled because we're watching them learn how to act on camera. They didn't get the chance to go to classes and make mistakes. They've had to learn on the job, and that's hard. The first line Emma Watson gives, she's up in her room, she's looking sad. Her mom says, Hermione, come down here and do something. And for some reason, she goes, Coming, Mom.
Yeah, I'm so glad because I was like, did they cast her for Beauty and the Beast because she sang the first two words?
I watched that part about 6 times. The first 2 or 3
sings.
just to make sure she's really singing it, then to laugh at it, and then to find some sort of context why you would do that. It just it sent me rocking first scene in. I didn't know what to think.
Well, the thing I liked the most is because you've never seen Hermione's house, and like it's cool, and you could, and then as she obliviates her parents, I made the quip because the actress who plays Hermione's mother also plays Catelyn Stark on Game of Thrones, who has a tendency to lose children at a very quick rate, and so that's another one against her. Catelyn Stark cannot take a break, but that was like a cool thing. I was like, ooh, look, Hermione's house, and then rip.
Yeah, and they did another montage to show how all the kids were dealing with it. Seeing the Dursleys on the run, I thought was a great idea in terms of the stakes, because they're not afraid of anything. Well, I mean, they're afraid of magic, but they more bully magic and they bully Harry. So to see them getting out of town and leaving him their house.
The whole beginning of that movie goes so quickly in comparison to the books, and I don't want to really compare this because at this point, like, they're not. I mean, they're close to the books, but especially 7 deals with a lot of backstory that they don't ever get to in the movies. But I found it interesting that they cut the scene where Dudley, he gets kind of upset and he's like, "Oh, we're actually leaving Harry, and we might not ever see him again." And there's a really touching scene in the book where he's like, Why doesn't Harry come with us? Why are we leaving him? And it was like, oh, that's such a good moment that actually wraps up their like childhood of, you know, their turmoil and they're beating each other up and all that stuff together in a nice way. And they were just like, cutting room floor. And I thought it was kind of.
I remember that scene from way back because it was nice because it showed Dursley caring, but it also showed his stupid ignorance. Like he still didn't understand why.
But he still had heart at the end of the day, and that redeemed him as a character. And now it's just, and let's be honest, this movie could use more uplifting stuff than it has. It's such a depressing.
Oh, this movie was a dreary dirge. There were a lot of lines that could have been delivered with any kind of gusto, but because it was mostly kids the whole time, and you didn't have the other kids around for any comic relief, every line was just like, you know, what could have been great. Remember when Harry and Hermione are dancing?
Yes.
Which is like a little bit of an odd scene. And then they stop and you think, oh, they're going to kiss. And then she just sort of looks down and walks away. And there's a lot of lines, like a lot of things delivered like that. And then lines that she delivers and Ron where like, these should be funny or these should have any kind of emotion in them. But there's just nothing there.
I think they tried to go too hard for the whole, and we'll get into this later, but I think they tried too hard to go for the whole, like, the Horcrux is really pulling all the goodness out of them. Once again, Rupert Grint as Ron just completely outshow. He's the best part of the movie. I mean, he's the best part of the trio, in my opinion. You get Harry gets better. Daniel Radcliffe becomes a better actor, you know, exponentially by little pieces. And, you know, Emma Watson is Emma Watson, but, yeah, dude, Ron is really good. And I think Ron brought a lot of the really, really good scenes to a higher level than they should have been. But maybe that's just me and liking his character and his actor. So
I mean, he's always been a standout. Yeah. I thought he was pretty good. There's a scene we'll get to later when they're talking to Blue Blonius Lovegood.
Yes,
and Xenophilius, of course. How did I forget such a common name like that? But there's one line there that we'll get to where I really wish he would have delivered that a bit differently. When the Harry Potter logo comes up, this is, I heard the score for it and it was doing like dun 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 dun. And I thought, man, this sounds like Hans Zimmer's Batman. And this came out like 2 years right after that. So The Dark Knight had just come out, or The Batman Begins, 2 years earlier. So obviously that was the new trend. Because when that came out, every movies now still all do that same violin ostinato over and over again. So you could really hear the influence.
It's like when the Inception trailer dropped and had that big blah, like horn noise, and now everybody uses it. That's kind of what happened when Hans Zimmer made any soundtrack. I actually wrote in my notes specifically, and it's early on in the movie. Actually, let's just wait till there. You want to go like from the top of the movie, kind of to the bottom of the movie? Because there was one scene in which I was like, "Oh, the music," but I'll talk about that.
Well, yeah, bring it up then. Sure, we don't have to do a full analysis.
The music, see, this is something that you always notice because when it comes to music, I kind of set myself in it, and I only really notice music in films when it's something that's like a Guardians of the Galaxy soundtrack or something that's really in your face. Usually ambient music, I just kind of fall to, and I don't really hear it. But in the scene in the very beginning, like maybe 15 minutes in, when Rufius Scrimgeour, who's like the Minister of Magic, is giving he's reading the will and the testament of Dumbledore and giving Harry and Ron and Hermione their gifts, essentially. And there's like this really nice, I don't want to say nice, but it's like a creepy kind of like, there's bells, and it's the whole entire scene is scored like very lowly. But as the conversation progresses, the score reflects it. And like I'm sitting there and I'm like, wow, this is really good. This is actually really good scoring for a scene. I didn't feel that way throughout the entire movie, not by a long shot. But like that scene in particular, I was like, wow, good use of undertoning music to like bring out the conversation and in the style of it rather than overshadowing it or not being there at all, which is something that happens quite often.
Yeah, we've had this this composer for like the last, I think since Order of the Phoenix. Yeah, it's been the same composer, and I think he's very, very serviceable. He's very he lays back a lot, and he knows he can do a lot of different styles. He never has that big standout moment, and he doesn't create a lot of memorable themes. But I think for how much how versatile he needs to be, and I just love the style. I think he's perfect for it. Even though John Williams like created the Harry Potter theme that they'll always be, but I think as they drifted away from that sort of childlike magical, I think this guy does a fantastic job. And low rising dread and tension is his bread and butter. Well, I mean, you can't use John Williams. John Williams, like you said, he worked for maybe 1, 2, and maybe even 3. But as soon as you hit 4, it becomes a suspense mystery kind of thing more than it becomes an adventure. So it doesn't fit to have these sweeping scores and these big bustling, like light kind of hit my mic themes and stuff like that. I think the composer, like you said, he's serviceable. Not the best, but definitely not the worst. Not even close. Yeah, we start off after the opening montage of the kids moving. We see Voldemort talking to the whole gang. Everyone is terrified of this guy. We got and I was thinking again, like we got Nagini eating. There's like a teacher hanging upside down, being tortured. Yeah, you got the Muggle studies teacher from Hogwarts is just like kind of floating in the air above the table. And this is, I believe, the first time we've seen Snape sort of sitting around with Voldemort. Yeah, this is. I mean, I feel like they kind of wanted to push it right from the end of 6 and like really go into it and be like, no, Severus is Snape is there, he's there. The one thing that threw me off, and it threw me off for the book too, is that like I don't know, maybe I just don't read close enough, but I don't think that teacher is barely mentioned more than once or twice. Like you never see her in the. So her being like, oh, she's dead. It's like, I don't care. Like she matters less to me than watching a Death Eater die, because I don't know who she taught Muggle studies, but like I never saw that, I never experienced that, so I don't care about her character very much. Yeah, that was definitely something that because it wasn't planned out ahead of time, they could have. But I mean, who would you put in her place? I don't know, anybody, any professor that doesn't really do anything in the final battle, which is hard because like a lot of them do. Yeah. But if I was gonna do anybody, yeah, that's hard. That's a hard one to replace. Maybe the divination lady? I was actually thinking that might be the go-to for me. Yeah. But there wouldn't be any reason. That's a drastic change. That wouldn't be any reason because Voldemort would want to keep her alive for the prophecy, I think. Yeah. I don't know. See, this is just bleh. It's just they painted themselves into a corner. And I mean, I thought it worked well, but I see what you mean. There wasn't really a lot of stakes. It was this unknown character that they're asking you to care about. What I liked in that scene is that you see how much the other Death Eaters are terrified of Voldemort. Oh, yeah. But Snape is so cool. He doesn't. He's like, whatever. It's fine. And then we see Voldemort go around, and I like when he takes Lucius's wand, snaps it, and then he smells it, and he's such a wine snob about it. He looks like some douche drinking it in. Do I sense Elmwood in here? Yeah. Yeah, no, that's a good scene, and I think it's good because you get to see the Death Eaters together, and they're more than just like guys in cloaks with masks on. You know, you get to see the faces of them, and it for I think for the first time, the majority of the Death Eaters feel like actual people and not just phantoms. Well, yeah, because we're seeing them a bit more vulnerable, not just phantoms, not just kill Harry. It was more of they're afraid too, and you can kind of understand why they're there. And then they show this like vision of Dumbledore falling to his death, and that's basically how this movie starts off. And I think, man, they're going for it here.
Yeah, it's almost like that scene ends, and then it's like they could have put it last time on Harry Potter, and then you just see Dumbledore kind of like, whoa, and then it's just like,
Yeah.
okay, Harry Potter. Just in case you forgot.
Which, I mean, they come out a couple years apart. Not
True.
everybody is going to go and rewatch them. Then we have the, what are they called? The Ward of the Phoenix guys and gals picking up Harry and doing the
Oh
big
yeah,
escape.
all of them. They take the polyjuice potion.
Yeah,
You have,
I thought that was a real classic Harry Potter moment. Everybody's
great.
slowly turning into Harry, moving at different rates. I love
and
it.
that's where I felt like Daniel Radcliffe really pulled it off, is because like I've said, I've seen this film more times than I'd like to at this point, and when that scene comes up, I like to look at Daniel Radcliffe as he puts on the clothes as the other characters.
Yeah.
And when it comes to body language and actually like using himself as a tool of expression for another purpose than his own, like, you know, dialogue, he does really good. He does a really good job of like there's a line where he's Harry, but it's Fleur Delacour, one of the Weasley brothers' wife, the girl who was in the Goblet of Fire, and she's, you know, prissy, and she does this whole, oh, don't look at me, I'm hideous kind of thing. And Daniel Radcliffe does a really good job bringing that out, and
He
won't
does.
lie.
I think he's when he had to act like drunk or on that truth, like the lucky serum, he really shines when he's supposed to be doing a caricature, and I think he sort of forgets to put that into the main Harry actor. Sorry, the
Besides
main
that-
role of Harry Potter.
Besides that, like Fred and George steal everything.
What?
about the
I think
beginning.
they're horrible.
Really? You don't like Fred and George in this?
Oh, always. I think they're bad.
I like them. I like them a lot, man. That's
Okay.
I'm sorry. Who did you like the most in this whole sequence? Because there's like a lot of players going on. You get Mundungus Fletcher gets introduced. You know, you have Shackley, you have Mad Eye. All the kids.
I think I like Mundungus. There's something about the Order I always feel is. It feels the most like a book transplanted into a movie, because you have these characters kind of come out of nowhere and they're trying to get all these little lines, and they're all kind of, it's like watching a high school play, because like when they're about to talk about the baby, but then they don't. It's like, we have something, and it's so telegraphed, and she like looks down and holds her belly, and then some guy jumps in front of her. He's like, never mind all that. And, you know, even though Mad Eye Moody, I think he's just a little bit over the line in terms of camp. I just find them all, they all look like kind of so silly too, especially with the big, what's his name? Kingsman.
Oh yeah, Kingsley Shacklebolt, the big dude with like the very African, or what do you want to call it? And it's very colorful. He always looks like completely colorful against anybody else. Like he has these like bright purple and blue robes and stuff, but he looks a little bit silly at times.
Yeah, I mean, I like them transforming, but I always find the scenes with them, that whole crew, a little bit weak, because they're trying to jam in so much from the book.
Well, yeah, and I was just going to say that's the problem, is like you're setting up this scene where they're all trying to take this polyjuice potion and they're trying to rescue Harry, and then meanwhile, you know in the book that Mundungus Fletcher, like one of the dudes, is a piece of crap, and you know that just because you've read about him and stuff. But they're trying to shove in his character in one line where he goes, "Oh, you know, I was coerced. You know, I'm not here." And then over here, there's a whole scene in the book where Lupin, you know, tells everybody, "Oh, we're gonna have a kid," and they just, like you said, shove that to one very telegraphed line. And oftentimes, because I read the book so recently, you know, I just finished listening to the book, an audiobook, like last week. A lot of these lines are plucked from the book.
Yeah, and it's very obvious.
Yeah, and it doesn't really flow as well as if they just had adapted it into a script, which is, you know. But what are you gonna do?
It's like if you just had a bunch of desserts, but you only took sort of the cherry on top of each of them and then jammed it together, and it's not really the same because you don't have a lot of the context. And I think they need to be a little more daring with the scripts, and just, it's okay to change it. If you're just trying to get the same point across, make a good movie that's based on the book. It doesn't have to be, you know, word for word so many times. One of the things I started noticing about this is when they're at the wedding, and Harry's just talking to people. I felt like that is where I enjoyed that it was split into two parts for the movie, because finally these conversations were allowed to actually breathe, whereas usually in every Harry Potter scene leading up to this, and oh my god, it's like
so
three
fast.
words, and you're just like, next scene, pluck a line from the book, cherry pick them here and here. So, and when I was watching, I thought, man, if this was going to be, say the Harry Potter books were written now, they would totally be a Netflix series, and they would
for sure,
and it would be like 20 episodes or longer. I mean, they would just draw that shit out, because Game of Thrones proved that's how you tell a book. You need time.
Well, and if you look at like a series of unfortunate events, which is recently on Netflix, even smaller books like that, they completely benefit from having multiple hours of time. In a
Yeah.
Harry Potter book, I think would have done well, but that's, hearsay. I mean, that was something that was never in the eyes of, that wasn't an option. So of course we're going to get a feature
Yeah.
film. Before we jump to the wedding, I just want to say that the whole entire action scene in which they all leave the house and they're trying to take Harry to the burrow,
Right.
they're all in like pairs and stuff like that. I thought that was really well done, at least for, they kind of start off and they're all in their own way, and then kind of Hagrid and Harry are in that motorcycle thing, and they burst through this cloud, and there's like all sorts of spells getting thrown, and like all of a sudden it's nothing. That part was really cool. And then in the end, when him and Voldemort doing the thing, him and Voldemort have like a little showdown before they finally crash land at the burrow. I thought that was well done. Altogether,
enjoyed that too.
I wish there would have been a little bit more like, throwing some stuff, but for a starting action scene, pretty well done.
Yeah, and the mix of fantastical with the sort of city street scenes in London and them racing through, I thought looked really good. I thought it matched the color palette really well, and I've really liked the way they've been handling the spells in the last couple of movies. That real kind of very, most of the time when they shoot the wands, like remember when they had that duel in the coffee shop? Mm-hmm. That was great, where it went dead quiet.
Yes,
and I think that they've really figured out how to showcase the wands and not having them yell dumb spells all the time.
So they go to the wedding, and I think my favorite part about the wedding is, like you said, is he looks at like a piece of paper early on. It's about Dumbledore remembered, and it's in a newspaper, and then he finds the guy who actually wrote it, and then there's some crosstalk, and you're finding out things about these characters along with Harry, and you're finding these things about Dumbledore, and then in the background you have like this kind of book that Rita Skeeter had written, and like so that pops up a little bit later. But the wedding, I felt like the wedding was a bit of a, like, not a time waster, but could have been compacted a little bit. Like there's that weird scene where Jenny's like, zip me up, Harry. And then they have like a weird kiss. And then Fred or George, whoever comes in with like a fork sticking out of the hole in his head. And I'm like, this is all very just like, okay.
Yeah.
But the actual wedding, when they're in the wedding,
I forgot that the Ginny and Harry stuff was still there. It's so airlifted in.
Yeah, it's just kind of like, yep, they still like each other, remember? Like, because they're never on screen together ever. So
she's
you're
so
supposed to
kinky. She's always telling him things like, don't talk, close your eyes, do up my dress. Like she's just bossing him around.
Might want to check her age, my friend.
it's true. Actually, I think I did. Yeah, I looked that up. They will be kinky later on. The characters.
Oh, in the epilogue at the end.
Yeah, that's the epilogue.
No, but
yeah,
they do the whole wedding, and then they say the ministry has fallen. There's in between when they're getting ready for the wedding. That's where that scene with him coming in, Rufius Scrimgeour, the minister, comes in. He's like, here, you get the snitch, you get this book of old Hermione, you get this book of old fairy tales, and Ron, you get the Deluminator that you saw in the first Harry Potter movie, in the very first scene. Which I like that they kept the style. The way it works the same. I like that they didn't try to update it for any reason.
And you would think that that's a very obvious choice, but they have changed the way things work, the way like Parselton works and a few other things. So yeah, I totally agree. That was nice it was a nice little, there are a couple throwbacks like that. Right. Then they have to escape because the baddies come. And
by the way, not to cut you off, but there's already been 2 deaths at this point. First death is Hedwig, the owl. She gets knocked down. No, it's actually been 3 deaths already. What, 20 minutes in the movie? When they get back, they say Mad Eye has died, which is kind of just like a send off. They're like, oh yeah, by the way, Mad Eye Moody is dead. I'm like, oh, I didn't care at all about that character. Wait, I did. I want to see what happened to him. Whatever. And then when the ball of light comes down, like this cool ball of light just shoots down, lands in the wedding, and they're like, the ministry has fallen, the minister is dead. So Rufius Scrimgeour, the guy you literally saw last scene, he's also dead. So there's 3 dead already within the first 20 minutes. Because this book is just full of death. Is all it is, or not the book, the movie.
They did a good job too of, because they only had 2 scenes with the minister. I like that they opened the movie with him, that close up on his mouth,
and he's kind of like.
Yeah, and he's got a great mouth for that too.
Oh, he's very good at facial expressions, so that was good. So
they only had the 2 scenes, and they had to get across that this guy's gonna die. So make sure you know who he is, because when they said the minister of magic had died, I had to think, who's that again? All right, it's the guy.
They
with the
change him
mouth.
too. Mm-hmm. So then they jump.
They escape. Hermione has a magic bag, and we get another one of the classic Ron and Hermione lines. and Hermione gives him the, oh, he's a tone of surprise. That's like their version of a Star Wars. I got a bad feeling about this.
Yeah,
but done horribly.
I mean, they drop it all too often. But I mean, it's nice to see Hermione as
useful,
resourceful as always. Yeah.
Yeah.
Then you get
the cafe scene, actually, that I thought was in another movie, but is in this one. And I think that's done really, really well, the way they walk in. It's kind of like a Western style. And a really good choice is that they use they don't have any scored music when they start having their wand fight.
Yeah,
it's just duel.
Whoosh, whoosh,
but like, there is a little bit of music. It's the music from the headphones.
Yeah, they kind of pop in on her. Yeah.
So that was a nice choice. I thought that was pretty fun.
I like it because that scene in particular is the most realistic duel scene they've had so far. You know, it's not like,
I agree.
They're not like, aha, let's on guard, let's duel Harold. They're just like, they start throwing shit, and then they're like, we know exactly who these guys are. We've seen them. And then you see after the battle, they obliviate them. Right. You know, like they're sitting there, they're like, one of the dudes is paralyzed and he knows what's happening while she sucks his like memories out of his head and stuff. So it's kind of like low-key horror almost at that point.
And they're arguing about what to do with him, where I think Ron wants to murder him.
Yeah. And he's like, well, if this one had killed, you know, your dad or something, how would you feel differently? So they're getting into like some heavy kind of stuff. And at this point, this is really when it's just like, you know, they are who they are and they have to do what they have to do. And then they move to what? They go to the Order of the Phoenix place briefly.
Yeah.
Looking for the locket, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Is there anything?
I
watched it last night, and I'm like, I can't even remember.
Well, there's so much in it, and I think it starts pretty strong, and then it drags once they're out in the wild. But there's actually a nice spot where Hermione is doing that obliviate, and you can see that she's remembering doing that to her parents, and I thought that was actually handled pretty well. I give Watson so much shit in the way they do Hermione so much shit that I thought I would point that out. That was pretty good. And then you have a little line where Ron tells Harry, he's like, "You're the boss," and there's that little bit of resentment there, where you can kind of see that starting to build. Yeah, you're right. Then they go to the hideout, and we get that other horror thing where it's just this long hallway, totally impenetrable, and then it's sort of mini kind of jump scare.
A little Dumbledore jump scare.
Yeah, and then we hop in and Creature. I like Creature. Mm-hmm. Creature's nice. He's got a good voice.
Creature is nice. He comes off better in the book, but I like in this one, he's not like a total dick. He's just kind of like, okay, Harry, I'll do what you want. Because at this point, Harry owns that house. Like, that is Harry's digs after Sirius died. Like, that's his place. So yeah, they're looking for the locket, right? And then they send Creature off. That's pretty much that whole scene, right?
Yeah. And then we have, then Dobby shows up, and they bring Mundungus to them. And
that's right.
I want to know, I don't know if you remember this one, but there was this terrible edit where one of the house elves has Mundungus, and they're asking him a question. Creature says, like, I bring Mundungus Fletcher, the thief. Yeah. And then it cuts, and then Mundungus is already like 4 feet over, standing on the other side of the kitchen table.
Yeah, and pretty bad continuity error right there.
Oh my god, it was horrible.
And then Dobby goes in this whole spiel about how, like, hey, I'm Dobby, and now I'm back in this movie because I'm going to die later, and you want to care about me now. Like, I know. That's pretty much what Dobby's there for.
My note for that part was, shut up, Dobby.
But I will tell you this, they improved his facial animations. They made him look less like an ugly, like, little elf and more cutesy. And I feel like they completely did that just so they could pull on your heartstrings when he died. Because we'll talk about that. We'll talk about that later. But they made him so cute for this, and I'm like, why would you do that? Like, why would you make him cute for the one movie that he's going to die in?
Well, because that's movie making 101, baby. Then there's so much in this movie. Then they infiltrate the Ministry.
I forgot that was in here.
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, like, there's so much stuff, and that's the thing is I feel like they all take their time, but there's so much stuff. The Ministry is interesting, but I feel like altogether it's like, once again, it's good. I like that you get these other actors, you know, and they get their own spotlight. Something they kind of passed up is they all run into different people, and then Harry goes up towards Dolores Umbridge. I always called her Dumbridge. Umbridge's office, and he like lets go this little stink bomb thing, but on the door, Mad Eye Moody's eye is in there, but they don't really. Yeah, they don't tell you it's in the book. They're very much like and in the middle of her door was the blue eye that anybody who knew Mad Eye Moody would know as his. Right. And the whole idea is that they killed Mad Eye, and then she took out his eyeball and put it in her door. Like, that's messed up. And in the movie, it's just like, oh, she's got a little watching eye, just like Mad Eye. And they don't really draw the connection. It's like, you missed something that you could have just put, like, from Mad Eye in a little plaque, and it would have made sense.
Well, they treated it like an Easter egg when it could have been a huge character tool to make you hate Dolores Umbridge right before they're leading up to a huge confrontation with her.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
which I thought was done
kind
really
of like
well.
whatever. Yeah, I thought that part was really, really well done. I don't know if you want to talk any bit more about the Ministries. That whole sequence for me is kind of...
Well, it's just kind of like the build-up to Harry giving her the stupefy is awesome. There's so much tension. When Harry kind of still looks like that guy and he calls Dolores a liar. Yeah. And when he says one mustn't tell lies. And I thought that reveal was done really, really well. Then there's a chase scene. And I feel like sometimes with magic and what they can do, it's like, all right, can they apparate? Why do they need to have a chase scene?
Can they apparate right to there? Like, yeah, I guess that's a little bit muddy. I liked the way it was done. I liked the way it was done because it was so quick. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have one other problem with the Ministry sequence, but that's related to the book, so it's not. No, it's such a small thing. Like when they come in the book, it's actually human bodies, and they made it human. I understand this is not an R-rated movie, but I think that one visual of seeing actual human Muggles used as like the pressing stone, it's not just statues, they're actual bodies, really shows you that it's like, okay, shit got real here.
That's
like
pretty extreme.
Yes, and I think that's the whole entire point, is that it's like, okay, yeah, the Death Eaters have completely taken over this place. It's all gone to hell. Like,
right, but that's almost like too over the top. Not even just for the rating, but I think it just seems a bit like unbelievable.
It was for the book, but I don't know. I like horror stuff, so I would have taken a healthy side of human corpses in my Harry Potter. Hey, whatever.
So they head out into the wild, and this is where the book lost me a bit because I love the classes. I want them to just hang out.
I was thinking about you during the movie because I was sitting here and I was like, wow, they keep doing these things and they go back to the wild where they're camping and stuff, and they go do these things, come back. And I'm like, okay, what they did in this movie is they switched out the classes and the roaming the school scenes literally for just walking around in the woods. And I was like, this must suck for Matt because the little in-between parts is what you like the most. They just, I will say that some of the shots, some of the actual visuals, especially there's one part where Harry and Hermione, just those two, are like on this big rock plateau, and there's this really nice sunset in the background. Right. That shot was so dope. Like, fuck yes. Excuse my French, but wow, that was a good shot. Otherwise, usually it's just like, gray and like you said, the moody blues and all that kind of stuff.
For the books, I love the classroom scenes a lot more than everything else because the books give you enough time to delve into that. When it comes to the movies, they never really do that stuff justice because you don't have that time to just hang out with the characters and worry about homework for 10 pages. Yeah. So I like that they got outside, and I'm sure the cinematographers must have been like crapping themselves to finally get to do some exterior shots because they went crazy for it. And it started kind of reminding me of Lord of the Rings with just this walking around in the wilderness. There just weren't enough big pieces, I think, when they were walking around. This is where the movie really starts to drag because they're just kind of hanging out in a tent and there's not very much to break the tension with it.
Yeah, it's just a lot of kind of the same stuff.
Yeah. With Emma Watson, like she's kind of had this worried style of acting for the whole franchise, and I think that this movie she can now it actually works because now it's not just about something stupid like homework. Now
it makes sense now.
Yeah, now she could actually die, so that's pretty nice.
I'm trying to think because like this movie, when I went in, I'm like, this movie takes 90% of this movie is in the woods. That's like in my head. I was like 90% of this movie is in the woods.
Yeah.
And they didn't really go out into the wilds until like the first hour was up. And like I think you said earlier, like the first hour of this movie is pretty good. I like it. It's very, it's quick. There's some things here and there that I have problems with, but for the most part, it's good. Mm-hmm. And then I just get lost once they go in. I know things happen, but I feel like the wilds and that whole thing is just it's just not messy. I don't know what it is about it, but as soon as that they go out and they go to the wilds, I can't remember the order of things. Everything looks kind of the same.
Because I actually have in my notes here, right as they're out and they have the necklace and they're going through all these little moments, I put engaging, paced well, compelling, but I don't remember a goddamn thing. And I think the problem is that at the time it was enjoyable enough, but nothing really interesting happens. Everything is so small stakes and just kind of waiting around, which works well in a book, but there's nothing really memorable there that has you, like, really. They have the dancing scene.
Ron gets his arm all messed up when he gets splinched, but like you said, it's low stakes because Hermione's just like, get that spell out of my bag, and he's like, Accio thing, and then she just pours on his arm, and she's like, you'll be cool. Like that's what happens with Ron. And then there's the dancing scene. They are trying. There is a scene where they're trying to blow up the Horcrux using different spells, and this is like the first time you see Harry use more than one spell. Like he uses Incendio and Protego and all this stuff. Usually he's just yelling Expelliarmus and throwing his wand around, but like he does stuff. I think a lot of the woods is like that section of it's building dread, showing the locket is affecting them. It's that whole entire teen angsty thing between Ron and Harry and this whole alpha male power struggle over Hermione. And it's cool. And I guess it's adult in its storytelling, but it doesn't fit all that well. I mean, it's good for the tension, but there's more tension than there is reward. There's a lot of tension when there's not a lot of progress, And I think that might be the idea because that's half the reason they're getting so upset. But yeah, I mean, they get rid of one Horcrux in this movie. And they spend a big amount of time trying to figure out how they're going to get the sword and all that stuff. Trying to make a 2-part movie out of one book can be a problem, and I think that they had a good intro to start with because the book already had a good intro, but finding that middle point and finding that second act was a bit of a problem. So that kind of lingered for a bit, and then we eventually Ron dicks off, and it's just kind of dredge. Then we have them going back to Godric's Hollow. In the middle of all of this, no, you're completely right, but in the middle of all this, you'll have occasional, when they're in the first scene, when they're all on the motorcycles and stuff or whatever, and they're all trying to take Harry to the burrow, first 5 minutes, he has my head hurts, and, he gets these visions over and over. Right. And so we're getting little bits of information, he attacks Ollivander, the wand dude, and then he attacks Grigorovich, who is another wand guy who you've never seen in this series ever. There's flashes of a guy, stealing something and then jumping out a window, and he's stealing it's a lot of that pronoun game. This guy has the thing that Voldemort wants to get, and you're like, it's all through very quick flashbacks. And they talk about Grindelwald a little bit, he's big in the book, and he's even bigger in the Fantastic Beasts series.
Let me ask you a quick question. What did you think about Deathly Hallows, the book?
Ooh, you know what? I thought the book was good, but it was different from what I'm used to because Deathly Hallows drenches itself in the backstory. You get a lot of stuff. You get a whole chapter of all of Dumbledore's backstory, his whole entire family, with the Lovegoods. There's this whole entire side story. We'll talk about that scene because I think it's done really well about the Deathly Hallows. This book in particular feels more about world building and more about lore than any of the other books in the sense of overall stuff. Cool, you have the Half-Blood Prince and his book is all crazy and, the Goblet of Fire and this Triwizard Tournament. But in the grand scheme of, magical history, things that have happened and will affect the rest of the whole entire magical world or whatever, I think 7 is the one that really brings it on all fronts. And I think that's probably why they had such a difficult time adapting most of it. Because unless you're going to really pull yourself out and do a whole entire scene where you're going with Dumbledore, and at that point, you're going to need to recast, or you're going to have to cast every single character, bring on new actors. You're not going to be able to do it justice. So a lot of stuff was lost. I liked that they did bring up Grindelwald a little bit, a teeny bit, because he's huge in the book. I think the Deathly Hallows book was my least favorite. One, because they left school, but also because it felt like to justify the ending, Rowling thought, I need to put in all this backstory right now. Yeah, there's so many arcs that were never talked about. You had 6 books to do it before. You didn't do any of it. You dicked around in book 3 and stuff, and even book 5. But I think that's this was a very Herculean task to translate this to a movie and to split it up into 2. And I mean, to me, the Deathly Hallows book felt like an entire series of its own. It could have been another 2 or 3 books
with the same characters. It felt like kind of like this odd continuation, like you're picking up at the after the school years, but it's you know, and
I like it. It's just not my. It's not in the top 3 or top.
And there are some moments later on where, you know, this movie, I thought, like, I'm gonna have to blame this lame part on Rowling, because she has a lot of very convenient plot devices.
Yeah.
Like when Ron comes back and he saves Harry. We're skipping a little bit, but this is on topic with this. Is that when Ron's having this big emotional moment explaining how he found them, there's nothing there because it's stupid. It's like, I followed a light.
Yeah, he's like, I was sitting in a pub on Christmas Eve, and I really wanted to see you guys, and then my Deluminator popped up, and a light went through my heart, and I heard your name saying, or Hermione saying my name, and then I apparated to a hill, and I'm like, okay, you literally just teleported back to them because your little thing worked. It's literally a plot device. Like the Deluminator is just there so you can be like, I found my friends.
But it wasn't this clever thing like Dumbledore thought ahead, and
no,
there were no magical moments where like, oh right, all those things tie together, like we saw with when Ginny was being in the second one, when she was being mind controlled, or when Hermione had the time control device. There's nothing clever about it. It was just, by the way, the Deluminator also does this. How fucking cool is that?
Yeah, like in the side, you can also find your love of your life by pressing it and hearing them whisper your name. Like it's I can see what you're saying. A lot of plot devices. Let's hop back real quick. So
sure, because this is the big moment. Them going to Godric's Hollow.
Yeah, there's those two. There's two. When Ron saves Harry, and then the Godric Hollow. So they go back to Godric's Hollow. There's like the scene where they're at the cemetery, and Hermione notices, you know, this weird like triangle thing on a grave, which sets up the Deathly Hallows later. Harry is all standing there looking sad about his parents, and Hermione does like she makes a little boutique, or like whatever you call that, like a little wreath.
They make a wreath, yet they can't make water. Later on, he has to like bring water back from the river or food. Yeah, but they can make flowers.
Let me tell you though, food is one of the 5 principles of you can't make it appear. Sorry, they bring that up in the book, and they explain why you can't do it in the book.
Then eat the flowers.
Like it's a weird thing. It's like food is one of the 5 magical things you can't make appear. It's one of Rowling's plot devices. But anyways,
okay.
They see Bathilda Backshot, which is apparently one of Dumbledore's old friends.
That scene was done so well when he's looking at the tombstone, and then they have that beautiful big wide shot where it's a side profile of Harry and Hermione, and their big heads are filling the scene.
Then the backdrop. You see like a little
swings around figure. And shows her Watson is doing a great job. I'm getting chills just thinking about it. The music is perfect. That whole starting from there, leading up to the big reveal, was one of the best sequences in the movie and was incredibly well done.
Yeah, let's talk about that, because this is the most horror scene in a Harry Potter, I would say. When it comes to like what you think of when you think of PG-13 horror, like this is that. It's all, you know, dread, but it's built so well. Which I'm like, why don't you guys make more horror movies? Like make a horror movie, because I'd like to see that. But yeah, you know, she maybe it's just because she looks so gross. She's so old and gross, and like she doesn't say anything, and it's all dark and damp. And there's the scene that you were talking about with the blood and the fly. I'll let you do it, because you love this scene. I could already tell.
Well, what I loved about it is that all the motivations made sense. As the viewer, like you were saying, the makeup they did on her made her look pretty close to death. So if you know what's going to happen, you go, oh yeah, there's something wrong with her. Look at her. But on the other hand, you could see why Harry, who just looked at his parents' tombstones probably for the first time in his life, and is so obsessed with any clue, you can see why Harry would go, oh, I gotta follow her. But then you got Hermione, who's the audience in this point, going, this is weird. So
they actually do it better than the book, because in the book, she, before they go upstairs, before that whole reveal thing, you know, the old lady points to Hermione and was like, no, you don't come up. She points to her and Harry. They telegraph it, and they telegraph the motivations a lot more. And I think the movie version is by far better, because they keep that dread, and you don't know exactly what's going on. And then you find,
because she heads upstairs, And Harry just follows after, and he looks possessed, like, I gotta know. And that's when they split off. He's following her over to a corner, and she just keeps walking down this hallway. And when she gets to that hallway and opens that door, and you just hear flies buzzing, I thought that was a beautiful piece of restraint, where you knew there was something wrong just from hearing the flies. Like, as humans, we know that flies mean there's death or something around.
Yeah.
And then they reveal Nagini, and I thought the fight was okay. Why didn't Harry use his wand? Why did he use a chair to fight a snake?
I thought the jump scare itself too was kind of cheap. The snake like bites them out of the window.
But then, Hermione, the next shot, now they illustrate it and they show the blood just like painted on the walls.
Yeah.
And then she realizes something's up and runs up there. The nice thing about it is that Harry just plays lion tamer with a chair and a snake, but it's Hermione that comes up and actually delivers a spell and saves the day.
And when they finally apparate back, it turns out that she didn't save the day.
Right.
She blew up Harry's wand, which that is a thing for a while. And then when you get into this part of the movie after that whole sequence, that's kind of where it gets muddy. Ron comes back. They're trying to get the Horcrux. I think the dancing scene is in there. They're listening to like this kind of like it's not in the book. I don't think there's something about like a radio in the book, but in the movie they're listening to like this toll of deaths and stuff, and it's very ominous. Like everywhere they go. Listening for their friends' names, kind of like a Vietnam kind of thing.
And they show one scene of that where it's the group. This is way back. They do a nice montage of them just kind of walking through abandoned places, dead people, kind of like Zombie Town, and then they keep playing that death toll in the background. And I thought that
sounds like it's like a really good zombie apocalypse movie. You could just it's really really good. And then around there, it's kind of, you want to talk about the actual Hallows scene?
Harry goes and gets water.
And he follows a little doe. It's like a little...
follows the doe.
Patronus.
Sees the sword. This is more of this J.K. Rowling. I need this to happen, so...
Yeah, literally a light shows him where the sword is, and it's underneath it's a frozen lake.
And the sword happens to be there. Why did they go there?
I think he just kind of wanders off.
But like, why are they even in that area to begin with? Out of the entire world. Why
every now
are
and
they
again,
in that spot?
Every now and again, and that's the thing, is that Hermione, when they first apparate out of the wedding, she's like, oh, we're at this place because I came here with my parents.
Right.
And when they go to Dean Forest, and I only know it because Hermione says, oh, this is Dean Forest. I used to come here with my dad when I was young. It's like they pick and choose where. Other times it's like, we're just in the middle of a giant salt lake. Like,
right. And I can understand that in the heat of the moment when a snake's trying to kill you, then obviously you're just going to go and you kind of wake up where you do, or
So this is where Ron makes his return.
Right, because Harry goes underwater, he almost dies. Another sort of
like all skimpy
horror scene. Yeah. And then Ron saves the day, and then he comes back. This is all okay. It's a lot of is skipped over, like you're saying. There's so much more.
What did you think of the actual? Because there's the actual. They got the sword. There's a really cool first-person POV shot where Ron is pulling Harry out of the water.
Right.
That they rarely use POV shots, and I thought it was done pretty well here.
Sure, to mask the identity.
Yeah, what did you think of the actual Horcrux scene? Because at this point they're like, hey, he's like, I'm going to open the locket with my parcel mouth. And then you, Ron, you got to hit it with the sword. And are you forgetting this scene?
No.
I'm thinking right, he's like, he says, I feel like when Harry or when Daniel Radcliffe does parcel tongue, they're just like, just do it. And he's like, like that's, he just kind of,
it seems different all the time.
Yeah, but it's always like a collection of saws and ahs. So he's all like, and then like the thing pops open and just erupts into like this amorphous like black
cloud monster
mist. Dude, and there's like faces being pulled in and out of it, and it's really
cool.
Well done.
I think it was nice.
I think the design of that Horcrux is probably one of the best things to ever come out of Harry Potter until they're like, we're gonna put the ghost sex in it.
Oh my god.
Yeah, and that's okay. Yeah. It's in the book, but it's muted in the book. It's not as bad as they make it. Like, it's not.
They were going at it hard.
Yeah, It's like,
I feel like Radcliffe's been wanting to do that for a long time.
yeah, I mean, so they're like,
That's the
Ron's
most
all
acting he does the whole franchise.
No, true.
Probably the
So
least acting, but the most emotive.
yeah, he wanted to be there. It explodes. You know, there's spiders coming after him. It's the whole entire thing is telling Ron all of his deepest fears. And, you know, there's Harry and Hermione. Their ghostly spectrals come out, and Harry's all like, my mom or your mom said she would have rather had me for a son. And Hermione's all like, what man could ever want you? And it's all like, it's kind of like, yeah, or woman, you know, hey, different strokes. But it's all kind of like teasy. It's kind of like sticks and stonesy, and then like you said, then Harry and Hermione, like nude pretty much, just start going at it, and I'm like, this is like the most sexual it's ever been in Harry Potter. And
but why would that make Ron want to do anything but kill the Horcrux? Because the Horcrux is doing that. I know it's trying to make him not like them, but I mean, if that was happening to me, I would just want whatever's making that to stop, and that's what happened.
Yeah. And then he does that, and then that's like the coolest part. And then honestly, in my head, I was like, okay, the movie's over.
But no, it's not. Then we have this odd sort of, they wanted to make it like the first Lord of the Rings, where they ended up, when they apparate and those guys just kind of see them, you know? The Snatchers. That's another one of those things where I'm like, why isn't anyone just shooting each other with wands? You're so close to each other. That guy talks, then they run away again. That makes no sense. Either shoot them or apparate.
Before, we're missing a scene.
Did we miss the whole?
Yeah, they go to Xenophilius because at that point they've seen this like triangle symbol on a couple of things, and you know they finish the locket. They don't know where anything else is at. So in the book, they explain it much more. In the movie, Hermione's just like, I want to go see Luna Lovegood's dad for no reason. And then they go there and you get essentially, you know, you see it's a weird little house and it's cute because it's very much how the Lovegoods would look. The dad, you know, you met him, you saw him earlier at the wedding. Now he looks like a wreck. You know, they're asking, where's Luna at? And he's like, oh, she'll come along. And they're making tea. And really this whole entire scene.
No one acts like you put so much more emotion into than any of these characters does. No one. Oh yeah. No one does that. They're just like, she'll come along, have tea. Yeah. Okay.
He's very just disembodied and like not even there.
Good word choice for that.
I agree. Thanks, bud. But this whole entire scene is just a platform for them to be like, let's do a really cool visual scene with this like old school like these three brothers, and you get the story of the Deathly Hallows. Did you like? I loved it, dude. I think that is crazy good, and I'm glad they did it with the sort of like, you know, stylized, almost not realistic, but it was like cartoony, but it was very good 3D animation.
It was a very big surprise because there's been nothing like that in the entire franchise.
Nothing stylistically,
but I thought it was perfect for telling the story. It did a really good job.
And it's the story itself, and this is once again kind of what Deathly Hallows is its own thing. This story is great. You know, it's about these three brothers, and they all want something different from death, and that's how you get these three items of the Deathly Hallows: a wand that can't be beaten, a cloak that makes you invisible, and a stone that brings people back to life. The whole sequence is really well done. I think it's fantastic. And then
he goes down to get some tea.
That's right. He's like, your tea is cold.
And then the kids are like, let's get out of here. Now Ron comes down and sees him just staring out the window, and this is where I was saying I really didn't like the way he delivered the line of just, you forgot the tea. You forgot the water.
You forgot the water for the tea.
Just, like, that's not how people talk to each other. It doesn't make any sense. It wasn't, that was supposed to be the big reveal. You know, like in a previous movie where, you know, some character goes, I didn't say that. And then dun dun dun. It's one of those. Yeah. But this was just really kind of poorly done.
I never told you there was a graveyard, Professor.
Yeah, like, one of those ones. So then, and then the Death Eaters come. Maybe you could have cut this entire thing out. Really, it wasn't. It's because after, like you said, the climax is Ron destroying the Harry and Hermione porno.
Yeah, Horcrux. That's. I mean, he gets rid of the porno crux.
Yeah,
he gets rid of the porno crux, and like the Deathly Hallows
crux.
The Deathly Hallows scene, I'm glad is in there, but the whole thing with Xenophilius, like, you know, when he delivers, when he's talking about it, he's like, oh, you know, you're the last hope, and Luna, they took my Luna, and you're like, you don't even seem to care, so why do I care? she's gonna be fine, or she's gonna die. Who knows? And then yeah, just a bunch of Death Eaters just pretty much ram their heads into his house a bunch of times.
And then they apparate away because
the end.
Why chase anything? Why chase a wizard when they can just apparate? And then very conveniently they end up running into this gang, and then they run.
Mm-hmm.
Like this.
I like this sequence a lot. There's no music, even though it's silly. You know who's running. I like there's no music. All you hear is like it's very quick. All the shots are very quick. They're all running.
Yeah.
And they're throwing spells behind them, and they're not using a lot of vocals, so it's just like whoosh, all that. I thought that stuff's really well done, but
sure, I just didn't like the setup of them being so close together, and then that just didn't feel logical to me. But I agree, once they actually are running and having the fights, they can do those pretty well.
And then they get caught, and then this is where we get the actual end of the movie.
Yes, ending number 3. They go into meet up with Bellatrix. Oh yeah,
they're at the Lucius Malfoy's house.
Yeah, and none of the adults can identify Harry because Hermione, with quick thinking, gave him
Jinx
that disfigured face. Jinx, good word choice again. But only half his face, and no one can seem to recognize him.
Well, and that's the funniest thing is because you'd think they've seen this boy so many times, and I like that.
He's so famous. He's on newspapers everywhere. He was on the actual newspapers like Public Enemy #1. Everybody knows what he looks like, and everybody knows Ron and Hermione.
They didn't change his face either. Like they just kind of made him look like an uglier version of Daniel Radcliffe. So and
the other half was fine. He just looked like Two-Face.
I think it's good though because when they get Draco, they're like, Draco, come here. You went to school with him. Is this him? And he's like, I don't know. And you can kind of tell he's pulling back.
Yeah, I thought that was done really well. This sort of inner dialogue.
Off of 6. Yeah, it builds off of Half-Blood Prince. Like Draco is not just a bully. He is a human, and he doesn't like being in the Death Eaters. Right. He doesn't like any of this, and I think in that scene you see him, and he wishes he was on the other side of it. And it's kind of like I don't know. Maybe I'm digging too deep into his performance, but like
I thought they did a great job with that, and that it's a testament to how good of a job that Radcliffe and Eminem did their little scene together. That you could see all the history they had and what their situation was like now with basically no words.
Another thing, because this whole sequence is, they're locked up downstairs. They find Ollivander, they find Luna, they find the Goblin, Harry and Ron. They're locked up downstairs. Emma Watson, dude, kills it in this scene. Bellatrix is on top of her, asking her, what'd you do with the blah, 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 blah,
right.
And she's doing something to her arm, and, like, dude, Emma Watson lets out this guttural, like, scream, which then progresses into, like, what we assume a woman child, like, high squeal scream is, but she does a really good job emoting in that scene. And then, of course, you see, Bellatrix has carved mudblood into her arm, and there's a really good shot where it kind of pans in on her, and she's crying about it.
And the one little, it's almost like a teardrop of blood squeaks out of when they first cut to it. It just shows Bellatrix on top of her, and Watson is crying, and I thought, why is she crying? And then you see,
almost like she's eating her arm or something.
Yeah, and then you see Bellatrix go over there and eat it or whatever she's doing, and then carving it in. So that was done pretty well. And then we get a good old fashioned J.K. Rowling easy plot device. Dobby can just save them, no problem.
And once again, this is something that's explained a little bit more in the book, but it's a plot device. In the world of Harry Potter, Voldemort doesn't account for elves because he thinks elves are garbage.
Right.
Essentially, he just thinks elves are garbage, but elves can like apparate in and out of certain places that wizards can't. That's literally the only thing. Like just because.
But that's a nice touch.
It is
that
a nice
actually
touch.
Makes sense, and it shows the arrogance of of the bad guys and girls. And girls.
Yeah, it's pretty much it's Deus Ex Machina. Like we need Dobby to come in and apparate everybody out. This is also right before that happens. Harry grabs Malfoy's wand and like kind of pulls it away from him a few times, and it's almost like Draco lets it go. Like that, I like that a lot. Yeah,
Draco he looked like he just wasn't committed to the fight.
Exactly. He doesn't even want to be there, dude. He doesn't want to be there.
He's just sort of going through the motions so that he doesn't get killed. So, but he's the heart's not in it.
Dobby has his last.
Dobby has his big sort of triumphant thing, which kills him. That's the hilarious part. They could have apparated away because he did that stupid like Dobby is free.
I am a free elf. I have no masters. Harry Potter and his friends. I've come to save them. And I'm like, literally, you're your own death clock right now, bud. Like,
and that's the best part is that, and then Bellatrix chucks that knife, and just in the split second it goes through and kills him. If he didn't do that dumb speech, He would have been fine.
Yeah,
So
and
it's
I
his fault.
hate how they did this in the movie because they should have done how it is in the book. Like in the movie, you know he's gonna die because he gives a big speech, and then she's like looking right at him. How dare you steal a wand or whatever? And she throws it directly at him. There's this big, you see them like apparating out, and it just
Yeah.
barely makes it. And you're like, oh yeah, that hit Dobby. In the book, they're literally all about to apparate, and she just chucks a knife, and it happens to hit Dobby, and that's like better. Like I think that is a little bit better.
Well, that's a big problem with movies is the lines before action and making it feel logical and making it feel dangerous. Whereas
Yep.
I said this example before, when a like a lion stalks its prey, it just leaps out, or an alligator, they just leap out of the water and they attack. They don't go rawr and then go for it because that gives otherwise the prey would run away.
Fucking alien jazz hands.
Yeah.
Go watch our Alien review for that fun part.
So he dies, and that's the ending. I cried when I watched this in the theater.
Dude, yeah, I cried real bad. You know why? I go back and I watch it again. I know exactly why I cried, because they made his eyes so big and so doe-like. The animators who were doing that scene were probably like, let's make him look like the biggest puppy dog ever. Because when Harry, you know, you pull about, they're all on the beach. Everyone's like, are you okay? And then you see Dobby just standing there. He's like, Harry Potter. And then he just falls into his arms, and right from the second you're looking at him, he looks like the biggest puppy that just got like smashed by a car or something. You know, he's bleeding all over the place. And Dobby's an ugly character, but in this movie, he's cute as hell. And then he's just like, "Oh, Dobby, I am your friend," and rip. But yeah, that scene sucked. It hurt, and it's well done. But yeah, I cried.
We're gonna bury him the proper way. No magic.
No magic. They do that. They don't go into Bill and Flora's house. That's the next one, I think.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. The last bit is then there's one more bit. They show Dumbledore's grave. It's not protected or anything. And,
yeah, but is that it? Does it just go from the Dobby death right to that?
I believe so. Yeah, Dobby dies. They want to bury him. Oh, they show actually a pretty cool shot of the hills and Harry, I guess, doing the digging or post dig. And then it flips over to Voldemort finding Dumbledore's grave unprotected, opens it up, goes in like he's gonna kiss him.
Yeah, he comes in really close to his face. Like if this is Dumbledore's face, he's like,
yes. And then he takes the wand, zaps away, and that's it.
Yeah, he is.
Oh no! Really cool. No, he shoots it up like He-Man.
Yeah, he shoots it up, and it's like a big electric strike, like a lightning bolt. And there's a really cool frame. It like ends on the frame where the lightning bolt cracks, and it makes the sky super white and everything lights up, and that's a cool frame to end it on. I thought the ending was a little bit like cliffhanger cliche kind of, but in comparison to ending it just with Dobby's dead at the end, like better. I would take that.
Yeah, I guess something to get you excited for the next bit. So overall, what would you give this out of 5? I think I'd give it it's either a 2 or a 3. I think
I give it a 3.
Yeah, there's enough good stuff in here, and it was compelling enough. So yeah, definitely 3.
I think that
far from a 4.
When you look at this in comparison to other Harry Potter movies, the ones that are inconsistent, this at least at all times looks good. Usually sounds good. Yes. You know, it looks and feels like a movie. You know, whereas the other ones felt very much like you said, like either straight translations to the screen of these books or whatever. By the time they hit 5, 6, and 7, and then, you know, eventually the last film, they feel like films. They look like films. So even if you're like, the scene's kind of crap, like at least it looks good.
Yeah, that's true. And they had a lot to get through. I think this was the most difficult one for them to translate. And Yates had a pretty good style going. And he did the best he could. I think Rowling was the weak link.
No, honestly, yeah. Rowling's writing starts to kind of peter off here.
It gets she does really good because she needs to tie everything up.
Rowling is really good at making awesome worlds and awesome things, but when it comes down to like the finality of like, unless it's a big thing she's been drawing out, like Ginny in the Chamber of Secrets or whatever, it's usually just like convenient plot device, and then all of a sudden Harry says, you know, like it's that. So whatever, it works. You know, oh, Harry accidentally caught the snitch in his mouth, like that works in the beginning, but towards the end, it's like, okay, the stakes do not match how they get out of these situations.
But she had made, like what? I mean, the other books, her writing wasn't great, but I think it was masked by, like you said, the world building and the humor and the fun and the adventure. I mean, this was her 7th book in a row.
She doubles down on it, on the world building.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Yeah.
And super
Maybe
well anticipated. I think with had the book having more of that world building that she's so good at, it would mask some of the weaknesses. But in a movie that's skimming, only cherry picking the important parts, those are exposed a lot more.
Yeah, it felt like a very, in a mixed way, it felt long and it felt arduous, but it also felt like it was, they were going through everything very quickly. It was kind of like Goblet, but long. Does that make any sense? No.
Yes. Very much so. All right, let's put them in order now. For me, I like Order of the Phoenix at the top. I think
we've agreed Order of the Phoenix is the best.
It's so good. It's so
and then it goes,
streamlined. Oh, baby.
3 and then 6, right?
That's a... I can't remember what we said last time.
I think we were arguing about it. I think
right.
I put 6 above 3.
Yeah, I would put 6 above 3.
Okay, so we go 5. So it's Order of the Phoenix.
Half-Blood
Prince.
Which is sort of a... Half-Blood is the bridge between Order and... I mean, it's literally the bridge between Order and Deathly Hallows Part 1.
Yeah.
But it wasn't as charming as Order. It was a little more bloated. But I think it had so many more memorable moments in it than this one because it was allowed to just be one book.
Oh, yeah. This is
one
definitely
film
the
for
setup.
one book. Yeah. Then you got...
So Prisoner of Azkaban is 3.
Yeah,
Decent.
although that has a real saggy middle section. Oh, my God.
Yeah.
It's unbearable.
And then I think we said
Well, we
2.
have to put this in there somewhere. We have to put Deathly Hallows has to go somewhere. What do you want on the bottom? 2? 2 and 4?
2. Yeah, from the bottom up, I think it's 2, 4, 1.
And then
7. Like 7. Yeah, like where we're at right now.
I would put Goblet ahead of 7.
Would you put Goblet ahead of 7?
Well, they're neck and neck. They're so different. Goblet is better than I remembered it.
I would put yeah, all right. I'm good with that. So if you want to go...
No, I think I want to switch around.
No, come on, man, because I'm gonna fall into what you think. Shit, I like Goblet. I'll go Goblet above. But if you think Deathly Hallows is up, I can respect both of them.
What one would you want to watch tomorrow night if somebody's, but a month, maybe like 6 months from now.
Goblet.
Okay, there you go. We'll go with Goblet. It was, Hallows. There was no fun in it at all.
Well, we'll do another video where we do like the whole entire ranking.
That's right. Then we'll really go.
At this point, we'll have to.
Yes.
But for the most part, yeah, it's from the worst to the best. I think right now we have 2 and then 4. And
what?
Then...
But we just put Goblet ahead of 7.
Oh no, it's 2. You do it. What is it? It's Chamber of Secrets is bad. That's all we know.
Chamber's at the bottom.
Chamber's at the bottom. Followed by 7, right?
You know what? We have to. Let's just do the ranking after. We'll do it because this is actually going to be very difficult.
I might have to do a whole thing about ranking. God, I thought this was going to be easier than I. All right.
It's very difficult because they're so different.
You're giving it a 3, like me?
Yeah, I'll give it a 3. There's enough enjoyable things in there, and it barely drags. It's not stunning. It's not memorable. It's a 3.
I have not seen Part 2 since the theater. No, that's a lie. I've seen it one time since the theater. I do not remember anything.
I didn't see it in the theater.
Oh, shit.
I think I skipped that one. Oh, no. I saw it. That's the big showdown one, right?
I was going to say, this could be fun. All right, I'm not sure if this one's going to be good or bad. I don't remember. I remember it being a decent send-off, so we'll see.
Yeah, but I also cried in the theater last time, and I did not cry this time, so we'll see. We will see. All right, thanks, everybody. You can find our stuff at a90skid.com. You can find me on Twitter at GameThinkTalk. And Matthew?
You can find me on Twitter at SuperGamecast64. That's my podcast. Or at SGC64Matt if you want to talk to me personally.
Fantastic. So you can share with somebody you think might like this. You can tell us your thoughts about Harry Potter movies. I'd love to hear anyone's rankings. And if you comment with any of your rankings or crap, we'll read it on the next video.
I'm pointing at it. Go in there in the comment section. Give us your ranking.
Because obviously we're too dumb to come up with it, so it'd be nice to have yours. Thanks, everybody, for watching. Bye for now.
Don't know how it feels. Your parents are dead. You have no family.
He's after you, Mr. Potter.
Tell me where it is.
You really don't stand a chance.
Got him! Help me!